Meet me at the Musial with Alan and Daniel. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. Everyone come gather round, listen to your favorite sound. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We'll talk the games and all the rest, about the team that we love best. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We're gonna talk about the Cardinals all night long.
Good morning. Welcome into another edition of Meet Me at Musial. I'm your host, Daniel Shoptaw at C70. With me, as always, Alan Medlock, a Medlock1 on the Twitters. Coming to you Saturday morning after the Cardinals have dropped yet another game, this time at least to the Yankees and not to the Rockies. It makes you feel, I don't know if you feel any better about a loss there, especially the way things are going, but at least it sounds better to lose to the Yankees than the Rockies, right?
Yep, that's no, I hear you. I kind of felt that way last night. I was like, well, you showed a little bit of life and all those things, but your offense has been so bad, you're not going to overcome 3 in the first, essentially. Anyway, one of those things. I know it sounds terrible, but yeah, that's it's much less of a gut punch. I felt like all those. All the sayings and the cliches were getting brought up on Tuesday and Wednesday as they lost, and kill shot, death nail, all of them were being brought up whenever they lost the series, which we thought, hey, you sweep this, at least win it. I mean, things are going to get interesting because the other two teams you're playing are playing really tough opponents this week, and they just failed to do it. And I think we know what they are, and whether that's the team that can get hot or whatnot. I'm just skeptical because of the arms, and now I'm less confident because they just can't hit.
Yeah, I mean it's getting to where it's almost difficult to find something that they're good at. More than just mediocre at.
And also, I mean, they're not healthy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, when you run out last night, Donovan gets scratched late again. Contreras isn't out there. Even with those guys out there, the offense has been very, very sporadic. But without those guys, it's very difficult. In fact, you give up 3 in the first and you think it's going to be a long night. It turned out to be a pretty good game, right? I mean, it did turn, they held the line and Palante figured some stuff out and, but that wasn't exactly what I expected. I mean, we've seen so many games as of late that if you told me after the first inning that game wound up 8-0, I'd have believed you, right? I mean, that seemed exactly like that kind of game. So, kudos for moral victories, but they don't show up on the scoreboard. And I know there have been a lot of people, and I understand it, but I have people that were, talking about how they were, 3.5 games back, the wild card and all this kind of stuff, making this run because they beat the Cubs, they beat the Dodgers. But I couldn't ever get into it because one, there's still 2 or 3 teams ahead of them, and the Reds are playing much better than the Cardinals are.
sure.
And 2, I just didn't feel like there was enough consistency in this team, right? I mean, this team, and we've talked about it a lot, is probably a 500 team, right? I mean, if they finish 81-81 this year, I don't think anybody would be stunned. And it just, I mean, occasionally you're going to get those little bit of runs, but then you're going to turn around and lose 3 or 4, and you'll be right back at 500.
Yeah. Well, that's true, and that's we spoke a little bit about it last week, where hey, you may get a run in you may play pretty well, win a couple series against teams that one we thought were better than them, but the Cubs can't score either, at this point, and it's you thought, well, here you go, the schedule's actually going to work in your favor for once, but I mean, I don't know. I'm just convinced right now they just don't have the pitching to sustain a run, and then the fact that, some key guys are out. And even when, Donovan's been down for the past 3 or 4 weeks anyway. You're right. There's not a lot. Not a lot of confidence. You have the Francona factor in Cincinnati, a lot of those things. I kind of thought, well, if this and this and this can happen and you play 6 games against them, I mean, how confident are you? It's one of those things where selfishly, I just would like to see them play meaningful ball in September. As far as what you and I talked about, and I say this a bunch, just don't ruin summer. And the thing is, I feel like they've kept their head above water, which it endures me to them as a team because honestly, they just don't seem very good. And they seem like they're missing a few pieces, but I do like a lot of the pieces they have, if that makes sense. And I
Yeah.
know that we were going over, and sometimes you can fall in love with the guys and realize that, hey, some of these dudes need to be moved to improve, but it is what it is. And wholeheartedly, I agree with you. It's just, that small chance of, hey, you just stick in there into the last couple of weeks. And that I can walk away thinking, hey, that was a heck of a year.
Yeah, I would say definitely they have not ruined a summer, right? I mean, this has been, even when they've not played well, it's been somewhat entertaining team. They've been in contention at times. They do have pieces, like you said, that are interesting. It's not been the slog of 23 or anything like that, even though they sold at the deadline. It wasn't that same type of year. So, I'm not saying this is a successful season by any means. I'm just saying it could be a lot worse. And the season's not over, so I guess we shouldn't say too much about putting too many postmortems on it. But even with a bad September, this is what it is. And I guess it helps. Maybe that a lot of us didn't expect a whole lot of anything coming into this year, right? We kind of expected a middle of the road team, and so when they played well early, it gave a little bit of excitement. And when they're playing not so great now and getting back to that level, well, it's kind of what we expected.
Yes, yeah, that's yeah. And I was kind of thinking about that before we jumped on here. I was like, you know, this is kind of where we thought they would be. Honestly, maybe even worse. I don't know, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it's added some excitement. Now, my question to you: has it? How do I say it? Has it added any optimism for you for next year?
That's probably not,
Yeah, I think that's
because yeah, just because we haven't seen the steps forward in people that we thought we would. Right, we thought
yeah,
this would be a 500 team, but we thought that Jordan Walker would start to establish himself, or Lars Nootbaar, when the playing time would become, the kind of guy we thought. And right now, I mean, we don't know who's going to be back, who's not, but right now it feels like the Cardinals have just the same questions for next year as they do this year. I don't know. I mean, maybe less. You know that Havon Herrera he can hit at the major league level, and but other than that, I don't know that any question that they had coming into this year really has gotten a definitive answer.
yeah. That's true. I mean, and I have these ebbs and flows of what I think. Like if you would have talked, well, that hadn't really, what I'm getting ready to tell you hadn't really changed in a week. Um, I know they need power. I know they need to create a lot of things, and some of this just points to the fact that don't you think it's just maybe a foregone conclusion that Gorman does get traded? I don't know why I feel that way, but I feel like they're going to have to settle on some potential there a little bit. I was trying to think of some moves that they could do, and that seems like the low hanging fruit. But that's the situation in St. Louis is so different because we don't know what's getting ready to happen because we're not used to what we've had the last 20 something years.
Yeah.
Of status quo and safety and all those things. How much is that going to change? And unfortunately, I'm skeptical that it will.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. I think we kind of talked about that some. I don't know how much, if there'll be the dramatic changes that we thought that there might be. There could be, but I don't. I don't know. And I guess it's wait to see. As for Gorman, I think somebody's got to, right. Somebody needs to be moved off this team that we don't necessarily think needs to be moved off this team. I think we were talking about before we got on here about how they're not hitting. And when you look up and down this roster, you're like, well, but they've got Donovan, and they've got, well, Gorman can be this, and Nootbaar can be that, and Walker can be this. And, this is a good lineup if and when. And there's a lot of
Yeah,
ifs, right? And
it's become a problem.
at some point in time, they're going to have to determine, for example, Lars Nootbaar is a slightly above average player, and they need something better than that, and they need to move on. Or Nolan Gorman is never going. He's going to hit 30 home runs, but he's never going to be a fully valuable member of a team or something. They've got to figure out something about this offense, and I think it's hard for us as fans, or at least for me, especially. These are people that have, for the most part, come up through the organization. and you still believe that there's that potential there that we just haven't seen. That idea that
Yeah.
they're going to be this when they all hit it. Well, it's kind of like what we saw earlier in the year, right? When the offense was clicking and getting 10 hits a game and all that kind of stuff, you feel like that's what they can be on a regular basis. And I don't know. I'm very interested to see how Chaim Bloom values this, because he's not got the baggage that some others do on these guys. And I'm very, maybe it is they've got to, but they've got to do something. I think they've got to change this offense somehow, because it's obviously not the consistent force that they would like it to be.
Sure. And I really like Walker. And I like a lot of the intangibles. I like a lot of the speed, but the numbers are going to have to play. That's the one thing I'm like, you kind of you fall in love with some of the guys and realize that, hey, that may be some of the problem. Because if you think about it, last year we had the same conversation. We said if your two superstars, being Arenado and Goldschmidt, aren't superstars, then you're not going to be very good. But you could heap just about as much of the blame on Gorman and Walker last year for not performing.
Right.
And in all honesty, they haven't this year either.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that you're just like, well, is this part of the drafting and development process that's failed, or what are we seeing? I don't know. You see Wynn take off, and he's going to be a mainstay. You see Scott take off, and he's going to be a mainstay. Some of these other guys may be moving parts. I mean, I really think that Burleson has leaped a lot of guys, and Herrera has leaped a lot of guys, and the guys that they feel like they can't move on from. That will make it pretty interesting this offseason about where they foresee Burleson in the long term. Because let's be honest here, I know it's one of the options, but he's 3 or 4 in the lineup every day, and Marmal sings his praises, means he's probably going to be in the lineup every day next year, and I don't disagree with that at all. So then you start adding those pieces up and saying, hey, you only have 9 in the lineup, and I know your bench plays into this, but where is everything going to fall into place? And you think that some things are going to have to change, and what those names are, we don't know yet. But I would assume one of those two are probably out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's going to be a situation where somebody's going to get moved, and we're going to be disappointed because we feel like there's potential there. But then again, maybe not. Maybe, I mean, I'd hate for Chaim Bloom to come in and say, 26 is another evaluation year. I feel
Yes.
like, to some degree that this, to some degree, this year was wasted in that regard. You definitely don't want to see a second one done like that. But then again, with the weaker minor league system and the probably inability to go out in the free agent market, I'm not 100% sure how different next year is going to be.
Yeah, and that's I completely agree with you, and that's a little bit where it's troubling, because we had a conversation the last couple of weeks of things are going to have to change, but you're just thinking, well, what is it? If you're hoping to put together a lineup that can push for a wild card spot next year, or are you going to just take it down to the studs and move on? And like I said, how much is 19th in attendance going to play into that factor? Because that's extremely troubling to me, because I'm thinking, is this the first year? No one's ever going to want to lose money, especially this ownership. I get it. But is there any thought process as to, hey, we're already 19th. Let's move down and let's reset this for a 3 or 4 year rebuild now that we thought may just be a 1 year reset, because we've already lost this. Now let's build up and see if we can't get back into the upper echelon of fans, and let's do it from the bottom up. I hope that's not the case, because I'm not so certain they get people back. Yeah. But on the flip side of that, we know that they're not going to spend money that's actually going to get people in the seats now. So I don't know how I feel about this one.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like once they put a winning team together, whenever that may be,
sure,
it'll eventually start to come back. Now, it's not immediate. I mean, except for opening day, you're not going to have 40,000 probably in the stands unless you've got people coming in from Chicago.
Well, I'm assuming 31. At least 20% of that last night was New York fans.
A good possibility. But and I mean, I will say for the balanced schedule, because everybody knows I don't like the balanced schedule. Um, but having a team like the Yankees come in every couple of years does help give an attendance boost. It's going to get less and less over time, just because it's not. If the Yankees hadn't been there in 5 or 6 years, last night might have been full, right?
Yeah,
Even as bad as the Cardinals are, if you had a chance to see Aaron Judge for basically the first time, you're probably going, right? So the fact that they were here a couple years ago and they'll be here in a couple years plays into that. I mean, there's still going to be a boost, but it's not going to be as much. Um, and I probably had a thought at one point. I just don't know.
I do.
Yeah, I don't know if I mean, in theory, could they go out this winter and say, "Hey, we're willing to commit to losing money"? And again, this gets into the whole dynamics of the finances of a Major League Baseball team, which we don't know, and we don't know how things go. But it's also fair to say that even if they didn't lose money, they made a lot less money over the last couple of years than they
Sure.
have, with
Yeah,
the TV thing changing and the lack of attendance and other things of that nature. I mean, they're still probably making money because of national contracts and stuff like that. But, if you look at it as just the Cardinals' fiscal year on the balance sheet or on the income statement, they may not have or have been very close. Now, again, that's not getting into franchise valuation and ballpark village and all the other things that go along with. Um, but if they were willing to deficit spend, as it were, and go out and get, again, I don't know who's on the market to do that. We've talked about that, but if there was a number one starter or incredible bat, and they went out and got that, if nothing else, to goose attendance a little bit. I mean, that could jumpstart something, right? But I have very, very much doubts that that's what they would do.
sure. Yeah, I mean that's it. To me, I want to be like, hey, we've been this route. Let's see what we can change and see if they can't go and uptick and be like, hey, can you come in at this dollar amount? I say that knowing I should not have said that. Let's put it that way. Can you come in and help rebuild this, or can you energize this fan base and we can win right away with this pieces? Can't I would love for that to exist. I just don't have faith like you that they would be willing to do it, and that all of this circles around the same ideology that I have, that I am highly concerned that yes, Mo's out, but Mo wasn't the problem.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's what gets me about it, because Daniel, I think there's some disconnection right now.
I mean, it's probable. I mean, it wouldn't be too surprising. I think that I know what you're saying. I don't disagree with it at all. Um, I do think that Mo's relationship with with the ownership, especially since he's been there for 30 plus years now overall, is somewhat to the fact that I don't know that they disagree a lot. I guess let's put it that way. I think
Yeah,
they've
I
they've molded him, he's molded them, and I think they're fairly on the same page. Now, we did see a little bit of you know daylight between them somewhat at that press conference at the end of the year last year, but I
yeah,
don't know that there's a whole lot.
but
Um,
that goes back to something you've said though, and you've said this for 5 years. I think the organization's a little too insular.
yeah, I mean the bringing in of Bloom is the biggest thing that they have done to break that.
Yeah,
And I think also it's not just the bringing in Bloom; it's the bringing in the Bloom and listening to him. Right? He comes in 2 years ago to do basically a team wide audit, and not only did they listen to his proposals, I assume they implemented some. I don't again don't know what it was, but they liked him enough out of that process to then make him Mo's successor, right? I mean, if he had come in and said a whole lot of stuff that they didn't like, or they didn't at least understand, like I said, they may not have liked him coming in and saying, your minor league needs a whole lot of redevelopment. You need to put your money in the minor leagues or something like that. I might not liked it, but understood it and kind of got a little bit of eye opening there. They obviously didn't take offense at it, I guess is the best way to say it, because then, now Heim's going to be here. So I feel like, at least in that regard, they have understood that insularness, that they're trying to shake a little bit of it. And I think it's going to be quite notable. Like, and I'm not 100% sure, I really don't know that Bloom's going to, first day on the job, fire Ollie Marmol. But if he does, I think it's going to be very interesting to see who he brings in as a manager, because I don't think it's somebody that has Cardinal ties like it would have been otherwise. I don't think it's a Skip Schumacher. I don't think it's a Daniel Descalzo moving up. I don't think it's anything like. I think it's somebody that's like completely out of the organization, that may never have played for St. Louis at all, but that's somebody that Chaim Bloom knows. And I think that's when you start really getting into. That's just another chink in the armor of that insularness, and getting another body in here that doesn't necessarily hold quote the Cardinal way as Holy Scripture.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's what gut feeling. What do you have on Marmol?
On whether he stays?
Yeah,
I think he stays. I
do too.
Does.
Yeah. I do too, and I think that like I said, we've spoken on this, and the way that he's approached the media this year, the way that he has really kind of stepped out and kind of his voice has been heard a lot. I think that he's kind of validated in a lot of things. I know that we've talked about, hey, what do you have to lose at this point? There's that ideology, and we're going to hear that. But I don't know. I think that he's kind of grown his voice on that, and I think that the new regime has helped.
Yeah, and I think that he's got another year on his contract, and I know in the past, they added to it and saying they didn't want him to be a lame duck manager. I don't think they do that. I think they let him get, serve out the last of his contract, and maybe come August, if they want to extend him, they come up with something if he has a good year or whatever. But I think that Bloom doesn't necessarily just immediately jump at that. And partly because I don't imagine anybody thinks that the manager is the last piece to the puzzle, right? That if you bring in, even if you brought in a Terry Francona, who obviously you can't, but that kind of person that, really makes an impact, that's not going to take this team into October necessarily.
Yeah, that's that's a great point. I mean, it's I don't know. I just get the feeling that he's planting some pretty good roots. And I may be wrong, and it may just be a 1-year deal. Even it wouldn't surprise me though if he may get an additional year, early, and maybe even in spring, to be like, hey, we believe in you. We like what you're doing. Here we go. I mean, I one, I think he's done a heck of a job this year, and two, I always appreciate the fact that he's willing to step out and say some things.
Yeah, I mean, somebody pointed. I don't remember. It was earlier this week, but this list of teams that were, I don't remember exactly the list, but it was basically like the top 15 teams. The Cardinals were on the list. The only team on that list that had a negative run differential, right? And I think it's not, you can't just point that and say, oh, Ollie's done his job. But I think that's a big part of it, right? I mean, they've gotten blown out of the games here and there, but they've won some games that maybe they wouldn't have won with a different manager. I think he's done a fine job. If the Cardinals decide to move on, okay, but I really expect that if nothing else, they'll let him serve out his term. If you want to look at it this way, maybe the ownership is tired of playing multiple managers. If nothing else, let him finish out the contract so they don't have to pay him and somebody else.
Yeah, Dan. That's a real good point. Kind of goes full circle to what we talked about. It's. I didn't know how I felt beforehand. I always trust the organization before. I was a huge Schilt guy, and to see that go, I hope this is the right move. But I always felt like the move was made for Marmol more than it was Schilt. And here we are. But the fans are ravenous right now. I'm a little bit in that guilt trap as well of, hey, I, this isn't what we're used to, and I'm not a big fan of being the laughing stock of
Yeah.
that be well, and Cardinal fans have brought it on of the fact that we always assumed 3 million was in the books, or was three, you can bank 3 million, but that's just not going to happen, and now you're slipping, and it's been pretty drastic on the attendance, and that's the thing that bothers me the most. I mean, I say this wholeheartedly. I felt like the energy was there with the people that were there, but boy, you can tell the difference because you didn't have to wait in line anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I kind of thought that if the Cardinals did hit this spot, that the attendance wouldn't take as much of a hit. But, then again, I mean, it is expensive to go to a ball game. And,
But yeah,
if you're going to spend whatever it is, a couple $100 even, maybe even more than that, depending on how many people are going with you and all that kind of stuff, you want to have at least a reasonable chance of of a win, or at least a good time, right? And you can't necessarily guarantee that. And so, yeah, I guess it doesn't surprise. I mean, it surprises me that it's been quite this drastic, but after the last 2 or 3 years, it's not, it's not surprising, I guess.
yeah, yeah. It's You're right. You're right. I mean, it's one of those, and when you're talking about ticket prices, you and I had searched on this, and listen, if anybody's listening and can bring this up and prove us wrong, I hope you can do it. I cannot find all year. I cannot find one of the cheap ticket discount deals that used to come out on Mondays. I've searched and searched and couldn't find it. And I've been to St. Louis twice this year looking for, discounted tickets. Now, what we had to pay was much less than what we paid in the past couple of years. So I'm sure that they may have that may be or added into how this is going. But I will say I have not received a single ticket promotion email from the Cardinals this year in the weekly emails, and I don't know if they exist anymore. And I think that leads to a bigger problem of, hey, they're just struggling to get people in, so we're going to do it this way.
Yeah. I don't know. I think about, and I don't, I can't even think about the fact that not even those special ones, but like the $5 Tums
Yeah,
tickets, or something like that, which you would think that they do more of that, right?
yeah,
Just trying to get people in the ballpark. But yeah, I'm just trying to do a quick search through because I usually don't just trash them, because I'm not in St. Louis, so it doesn't matter as much to me. But just even a quick search through that, through my trash, I don't see anything that has to do with tickets or anything of that nature. And it's, I don't know. I mean, maybe they've been there, maybe we just haven't seen them. Um, but it is. I mean, and maybe you're right. Maybe they've just discounted it, or maybe they just figure, I don't know. They have connections with the secondary market, right? I mean, they probably get a portion of tickets sold on StubHub or whatever one they're partners with. I think it's StubHub. So maybe they're not as concerned about it. They just they'll figure they'll get just as much money that way instead of discounting it. I don't know. I don't know what the approach has been this year, but it doesn't look like. And maybe, like you said, maybe other people that are in St. Louis, they know about it. They know that they have been doing it about as much as normal, but um, it may be, like you said, they're losing money already, and they don't feel like they can lose any more.
sure. Yeah, that's and that I don't know. And I mean, I searched and searched, and I was like, I could not find this because there's several times I buy tickets off of that. You know what I mean? If you were playing it in a weekend, we would know that we were going and wait to buy our tickets to see what was on that email.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? If that makes any sense. And
yeah,
they never came this year, so we just did it on our own.
yeah. I don't know, and it may be a change in how they approach things, and it
Yeah,
may be something that just felt. I don't know. I don't know what's going on, because, like you said, you would expect with less people in the stands that they would have more, $5 tickets, because $5 is better than no dollars. But
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe they found that the discounts don't work as much. I mean, if Cardinal fans don't want to come to the game, they're not going to come to the game. I don't know. Um, it would be interesting to find out. Um, so again, Cardinals almost got swept by the Rockies, and I think it's fair to take a little time to talk about how bad that is. I mean, and it really kind of set in relief because of the fact that he just played so well, right? They just beaten the Cubs and beaten the Dodgers, and looking. I said didn't expect them to make a run, but at least they were, doing something, winning some series. Um, it's just amazing how flat this team can get, especially. I mean,
Yeah.
they lost the season series to the Rockies. They lost, both a series in Colorado and the series in St. Louis. And again, without Brendan Donovan pinch hitting in the 8th inning of the game one, very well could have lost all 3 games to a team that, at least until they ran into St. Louis, was in the pace to be the worst team of all time. Um, it's
Yeah.
gonna, the Cardinals. It's very likely that the Rockies will finish at 42 or 43 wins, and the difference in that of them not being as bad as the White Sox were last year is the fact they got to play the Cardinals more than the White Sox did last year, who also beat up on the Cardinals. So I don't know that I like the fact that the Cardinals are having their hand in these kind of records, but yeah, I don't know what I mean. It's really hard to get enthused about a team when they look so flat against such a bad team.
Sure. No, that's like we talked before the game. I mean, I was really nervous because they had lost 7 in a row when they were coming into St.
Right,
Louis, and I
right.
was like, well, a sweep is going to be tough there. I've always said that no matter who it is, but if you can at least win the series, keep a little positive momentum. The teams ahead of you are chasing a little bit. If you're going to stay in this, stay in this, make it fun as we run through, get into September. Um, win game one, a little bit and I never thought about it like how you put it, until we talked about it before the show. I was like, well, you're right. You probably get beat if not for the big pinch hit. And I was thinking, well, that momentum is going to carry over. And 100%, 100% certainty. I said this before the show. The minute Freeland got out of that first inning jam, I knew. I was like, Cardinals are going to regret that. This could be a long night. And they didn't have a hit again until the 6th inning.
Yeah.
One of those things, and threatened once, but not much. And it was really, really flat. And then to come out and, lose with your best reliever, I think. And those things are going to happen.
Right.
But it's just one of those, you're just like, well, this is kind of who they are. And, now I wouldn't say tease, but at least got us enthused, maybe more enthused than we probably should have been, type situation. But yeah, you're right. I mean, when I saw all the stats that came out what's the percentage and of winning and the historical, the historical points of the shutout the Cardinals twice this year and stuff like that, then it really blew me away that I was like, that's kind of an ugly situation.
Yeah, because I mean, again, the game, the last game, like you said, JoJo got beat. Okay, fine, that happens. But if you have a lead that's more than 1 run, or a lead at all, I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, they never were able to put any kind of offense against a team that, averages giving up 6 runs a game. The Cardinals barely scored at all against them, in the whole series, and again, that goes back to the offense that we've talked about and how they can't be consistent. But man, I'd have to look at the roster. I can't think of a game as of late where the offense just really did something. You know what I'm saying? It just really kind of, blew up. I'm sure there is one. I'm just not thinking it over the top of my head. But, because early in the year, they would have those games where they, score 10 runs or whatever the case may be. It just hadn't been there. And then part of that's injuries and part of that's everything else. But I don't know. I mean, is that a bad omen for, the rest of the year?
Man, I mean, how much of it is fatigue?
Yeah.
I mean, how much is it wear? I mean, these guys, Donovan has been out a good part of the last 2 seasons, right? Was it the elbow 2 years ago? And then,
Seems about right. I'd have to look.
yeah, but I mean, a lot of these guys are everyday players this year for the first time. And, I would assume we're running into some of that. I mean, no excuses, because I'm still not certain a lot of these guys are going to be, 120 OPS plus players. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, it's one of those that has been that's in the past week to 2 weeks. That has been the thing that's concerned me the most, because we knew they had to go get arms. That the injuries in the of the prospect arms was going to kill them, because then you're like, well, now they don't have anything back. And we have some guys that Roby's probably done, could potentially be done in the organization just because of the timing of this elbow. And those things, that's the troubling stuff. So you're thinking, well, they're going to have to add somewhere just to get innings regardless. But now you're thinking, is this team ever going to hit consistently? And that's it's concerning.
Yeah. Yeah. Looks like Brendan Donovan, he 652 at bats or plate appearances last year, 371 the year before, like you said, and then 468 in the majors in 22.
Okay.
So, and he's at 476 now. So,
Gotcha.
There's maybe it's interesting to look at Donovan, and again, this is baseball reference for him, but he's at 2.2. Last year he was at 2.6, and obviously there's more time to come, but he'll probably pass last year's 2.6, but not by much. And he had 4 his rookie year. And I guess it's the fact that, we've highlighted Donovan as this highlight of the offense for this year, which he has been, but his OPS plus is 112. So it's 12% above average. That's not, I guess what I'm saying is maybe he's standing out because nobody else is, more than the fact that he's really having just an outstanding season. I mean, it's an all-star season, and I don't want to downgrade. Yeah. I'm not down to downgrade what he's doing. Sure. I just don't know, if he was having this season with the offense that we thought the Cardinals were going to have, would we be noticing it as much?
Yeah, no, agreed. I mean, it goes into that. It goes into that category that we were talking about a little bit earlier. Gosh, I don't know how to say this without it making sense, or with it making sense. You want this Donovan has to be great for them to be good. You would like for this Donovan would have to be good because they have better. You know what I mean by that? Like, yeah. I love Donovan. And I hope that is somebody I hope they extend in the spring, which I do want to talk to you about. That a question I want to bring up here in a little bit. That's somebody that I would like to keep long term. But I do think, and I think they know this, Donovan can't be the superstar.
Yeah.
I think that they're going to need to do that. I mean, and I think that you could even throw Contreras into that a little bit now, to where it's like, hey, these guys are going to be solid. They're going to hit. They're going to be everyday guys. They're there for you. But you're going to need that next uptick, and you're going to need that next Arenado. You're going to need that next Goldschmidt. Now, where you find that, I don't know, and that will be some of the problem because of the position glut and how they're going to do it, and that it's one of those things that lead me to think that one of the young stars have to get traded this offseason, or do they trade all of them and start from scratch? I mean, that's some of the mystery, but yeah, I mean, back to Donovan. I mean, he's one of those that's done just everything that I would think that he would walk away thinking when this was a successful season. He would never say that because, one, there's going to be instances where as an all-star he felt like he had to carry the load. But as he would have been back in the day, you'd have 4 or 5 all-stars. And I know that's you may never catch up with that. It's going to be a time that they catch up with that. But I hope that rambling makes sense, that we want Donovan to be Donovan. We don't want Donovan to be Golden Age Goldschmidt Arenado, because it's not fair.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, your team, if he should be taking your team from good to great, not mediocre to good.
Yes. Yes.
That kind of thing. And again, I agree. Absolutely. I mean, he's a very valuable part of a team, but he's not supposed to be the guy that you build around.
100%. Yeah.
And that's unfortunately getting closer to what the Cardinals seem to have been doing.
Yeah.
Or at least considering. Yeah, I don't know. So what you said you had a question about as an extension. Go ahead and let's just.
Well, do we see a spring extension this year? We typically do. How much are they going to blow the mold up?
Well, we didn't see one this year, right?
Yeah. But that would, in theory, be the outlier, though, right? Because we knew that this was, we knew they had broadcast this from forever that this was going to be the reset year. So you kind of thought, okay, well, we're going to see how this plays out.
Right. But also, we
But
didn't see one the year before either because we thought we would see the Goldschmidt one, and it never came.
that's true. Yeah.
So you wonder if maybe they've started to shift from that anyway. I don't think Heimblum makes a spring extension his first year. I think if he wants to extend somebody, he'll do it in the off season, try to, like make a big deal out of Mason Wynn or Brendan Donovan.
No, that's okay. That's where I was going with that 100%. And that makes a lot of sense, but go ahead.
No, I think that's, I don't think there's a need now. I mean, could he spend the winter trying to trade Nolan Gorman and find there's not one and then go ahead and extend him just to try to buy? I mean, something like that in the spring, maybe, but I feel very unlikely that he's going to go that route.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, you brought up the name that I wanted to bring up, and that's, I want to see how they feel about Wynn.
Yeah.
Because that's one of those to where I think just the intangibles that he brings right now, I think that's somebody you have to sign and bring on no matter what the outlook is, for your club. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
I think he's going to make you better regardless. And he's a guy that you could market extremely well and start really pushing that narrative because he fits so much of what the Cardinals used to be. And I think that's somebody to look at, that it may happen. And you're probably right. It may happen over the offseason. When I see a lot of the young guys sign with some of these other clubs, and then you look and I know that Milwaukee's Milwaukee right now. And Milwaukee's what St. Louis used to be. And you see that the difference being is they're highly progressive in how they handle a lot of the young guys. And I do wonder if there's not going to be some of that stolen ideology to maybe get one of these guys in to build around, knowing that, hey, you're going to pay him to be your everyday shortstop, key position. You're going to market it. His face is going to be all over everywhere. And I think that he's going to sell. But you do, with that, signing that contract to a guy that's going to be here long term and building around that as a tentpole, as a team, as a marketing tool. And the idea the idea that you're gonna build around him with components of of an upgrade, as in you're gonna go find high upside offensive guys, and you may bring in I think you have to bring in another arm at least in the offseason. And I would love to be able to say, hey, they signed Wynn and they signed two other players that are good. Now that's pie in the sky for me, but I think it does start with Wynn.
Yeah, nobody's bigger Mason Wynn fan than I am, and I absolutely think that the Cardinals should do what you're saying, extend him, make him the face. I think there is a difference in, because I think the argument would be Harrison Bader, right? That the Cardinals grabbed on Harrison Bader, made him the face of the franchise. He was out there modeling the baby blues when they came out and doing all that. And did that, and then just 2 years later he's traded to the Yankees. I think the difference is Mason Wynn has a deeper body of work at the major league level than Harrison Bader did. He's shown that he's got a little bit more overall game than Harrison Bader did at the time. I mean, Bader obviously had some, and Wynn is still developing. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to me, because I think if you're not going to go out and hire and sign other players, you've got to highlight what you have, and I think that's a really good way to do that without regretting it 3 years down the road. Because I mean, Mason Wynn, an extension for Mason Wynn, even if you're buying out, even if it's a 7 year extension, is not going to break the bank, right? I mean, especially not right now. It's going to be, maybe you'll spend more there than you would have through arbitration or whatever. Maybe not. I mean, if he takes another step. But I just don't think that anybody's coming up through the organization that's going to replace him. I don't think even, I don't think JJ Weatherholt's going to push him off a short or anything like that. So I think it makes sense to me. I think it makes sense more than anybody else on this team to do that. And you're not spending your money probably any other way, so you might as well at least you know highlight where you have spent money and do that rather than leave yourself open to the fact that the charge that you don't necessarily care about the team. You're just trying to pile up some profits.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Segue into the weather hole situation too is that kind of leads me to think that Gorman may be out the door as well. But I will say this is I hope this makes sense too. Is the excuse for development with Weatherholt not coming to the big league basically a lie?
No, I don't think so. I think for two. I think one, it's not. They still do want to see him develop at AAA because again, what have we said before? Sometimes you want to see if a player fails and how he bounces back, and some of that is not what the Cardinals have had. Right? They've kind of rushed their guys up, and then they've had to figure it out at the major league levels when they struggle. And I think Weatherholt's a smart guy. I think that but he has not. He has not struggled in the minors at all yet, right? I
Yeah,
don't think you can say that. So I think in part they'd like to see him, just see what happens. If he has another, great 2 months, then great. But I don't. I think they'd like to still see some development. So I think that part is true. I think also the idea of the not having to tie them into the 40-man spot. Not that they can't clear spots and things of that nature, but I just think they want as much flexibility as possible. Um, three may be the dysfunction in the front office about Mo's still there, but this is a Heim type of thing. Who gets to control? And then I think the biggest thing is probably you only get those two spots nowadays, right? And if you got 40-man roster like you used to, I think that the argument to not bring up Weatherholt's a lot
yeah,
less. But now, when you only have those two spots, I mean, and when you factor everything else in, I mean, could they still bring him up? Sure, but don't. I don't fault them for not,
sure, sure. No,
especially on a year that's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
lost.
yeah. No, I wondered more. I'm so skeptical on those moves because I'm thinking, okay, but I mean, I'm ignorant as far as the contract stuff goes too. I'll be honest with you. But I always feel like in a situation like this, to where you're trying to showcase some things, I am skeptical that this is made completely on a development process. But that's a good argument you
Yeah,
make, and it's one of those where I'm just thinking, well, you know, I felt like they did hold Walker down a little bit before coming up, and you know, Meyer.
I mean,
Go ahead.
it depends on how you
Yeah,
look at it, right? I mean, where you look at it, because he obviously came out of spring training that year when he didn't need
yeah,
to. But then he did they took their time bringing him back up, but then, I mean, Jordan Walker is that case, right? I mean, we don't have any idea. He hasn't been able to put together except for that second half of his rookie year, put together much at the major league level, and so it's hard to know. And he's gone back and forth, have they messed him completely up? I think I wouldn't say completely, but I don't know that they've done any
agreed.
favors.
Yeah, that's it seemed, yeah, that's concerning, and it goes back to 2 years ago. I remember Mo's body language when he was brought up was really troubling to me. So I was like,
Yeah.
crap. Why are we not getting the full story on this? I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, we don't know necessarily what all is going behind the scenes and the relationships, and you know if a player has said you know this or that, or has indicated they want to be up, or anything of that nature. um no telling. Before we wrap this up, though, I want to talk a little bit. Nolan Arenado, we've mentioned, I think, before. Nolan, right after the trade deadline, goes on the injured list with a shoulder, and I think a lot of times we were talking about it. Even the idea of, is he done for the year? Is he done as a Cardinal? Is he all this? This stuff. Is it truly a shoulder issue, or is it just a get out of town type of thing? Um, Nolan's gone down to Jupiter. He's working out there, strengthening the shoulder, and it sounds like for all indications is at least planning to return. Maybe at the end of the month, beginning of next when they does. Um, are you surprised at this? Did you? I mean, did you really when you heard that he went? He was kind of going down to Jupiter. Was that something you were
No, not
expecting?
at all. Not at all. I kind of thought it was not necessarily for, not necessarily for the. I didn't think that he was done as a Cardinal, but I really thought that this would be a situation to where we wouldn't even hear the name until probably that last homestand. You know what I mean? And then to come back, or
Yeah.
soon about mid September. One of those things to where it was not necessarily the walking away tour, so to speak. But I kind of thought that that's where it was going to go. One thing that you've got to give Arenado, it's not that he doesn't work hard. Because I mean, we've seen this a lot. Now, I mean, last year he took it personal and wanted to completely rework his swing and do his thing and come back and one of those, and you're willing to go down and start from scratch and do it again now. I mean, that's impressive. I do think he's still that I think he's still that wrench in the cogs a little bit. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's not his fault. It's the contract's fault, and that they can't move it. But yeah, I mean, there's somewhat admirable about this, and now I kind of want to see him come back and get a welcome that he deserves, and where that goes from there, I don't know. I mean, we had talked about it last week a little bit. Is the idea of a DFA? Did you ever think that could happen? I don't think they would do that, but I mean, I just kind of wondered
No.
where it would baseball wise how this would work.
Miles Michaelis is still on this team. I think we've pretty much guaranteed that they're not going to DFA.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yes, yeah. I agree. I have I have a weird feeling that now I'm not even gonna say it, that we haven't seen the last of Michaelis. Let's put it that way.
There are a lot of people that there's that buzz about him getting a 1 year addition.
Here's my thing about that. How are they going to finish innings next year if they don't sign people? That concerns me, and I don't think that's the route they're going to go. But I do kind of worry that it's going to be a situation that they did a couple years ago by get the Gibson types just to come in to make sure they can finish the season.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised at something if they don't get some sort of veteran arm like that. The problem with those veteran arms, and we've seen it, right, is that sometimes they're not finishing the innings, right? If they're bad, they're 3 innings and you're having to pull them anyway. Now, granted, give Michaelis the credit that he's due. I mean, there are times, a lot of times, where he'll go 6, right?
Yeah.
At least. I haven't looked at I'm not looking at his game log right now, but I know there's stretches, especially lately, where he's kind of pitched better and gone deeper into games, or even kind of may have finally blown up late, but it was late, or was it he gave up 2 or 3 runs early, but they kind of locked it down after that. Again, not saying that they're winning those games, but he's been able to put some innings out there. I don't know. I think that if Mo was in charge for next year, I would feel a lot more likely that they're going to do that. Like they'll bring him back in for another year for that kind of stuff. I think if Chaim Bloom wants to do that, he'll find somebody else. I think he will. If nothing else, I think he'll want to try to make some divisions between the team that's been here the last couple of years. And what's coming in.
I mean, with that being said, I mean, you're going to go Gray, Liberatore, McCreevy, Palante potentially in the rotation next year. I would think of the guys that are the most safe of that group is probably Liberatore, just because of I think the potential's high. I also think that I think the link with Tampa Bay was pretty big, and I think that may have had a part to why he went to the rotation this year so quick. Because if you remember, that wasn't even really being mentioned before the move was made, because there was like, well, why are they?
At least not publicly. Yeah, we don't know how much behind the
that
scenes.
very true.
We
very true. I mean, is it a situation where you're like, are you convinced that you're going to extend or start stretching out Leahy to maybe get that spot? is Matthews at the point now to where, I mean, I think we see Matthews, by the way, before the end of the year for several reasons. One, was there a better time for him to have his best outing of the year when it was on national TV or on the FanDuel, get broadcast?
Yeah.
I think that probably says a lot. I do think that we probably see Matthews this year, which could go a long way to what happens in the rotation last year. But my question is, those are the guys that could potentially be brought back. I think you have to add regardless, and I'm not even so certain you may not have to shake that up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely do because even if you feel confident in Leahy's extending out, which I'm not 100%
Well,
sure on. I'm
yes.
not sure I'm on that train, but even if you do, I mean, there's not any depth, right? I mean, Matthews is there, like you said, so that might give you 6 starters if LA. But other than that, I don't think you want to bet on Liam Doyle being ready to go by midseason. He could be, I mean, but I don't think that's the way to bet. Um, and who else? I mean, who else is in the system that you feel? I mean, Takoa Roby's out for the year. Tank Hintz still has to show that he can be healthy enough to develop. You know, there's nobody. I mean, sure, there's fillers in the
Yeah.
organization, and you can always pick up some more, which the Cardinals have done throughout the season and put them at AAA. But if you're talking about just arms that people want to see, that's that might have part of your future. That's about it. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think they go out and sign some sort of veteran arm, and again, if they wanted to, I think best case scenario, right, is they go out and sign a Merrill Kelly, who's not going to cost just a huge
I
amount
would
of
love
money.
that. But yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And put him at your 2 and then let everybody else kind of develop from there. But I don't, I think that's best case scenario. And that's assuming, they could get that done. But yeah, I think they're gonna have to find some arms, even if they're just the journeyman arms to to have some depth
Yeah.
next year.
Yeah. That's that just to get the innings in the rotation to finish the season. That's kind of how I feel about it. I'm like, that's why I'm thinking, I'm not so certain. I do not think Michaelis comes back. I will tell you that, but it'll be that tight is what I'm worried about.
Yeah, I'm going to be very interested to see who signs Michaelis because he's obviously still wants to play, and assuming he goes on from the Cardinals, where is that? Is that a Pittsburgh that signs him, trying to hope that he has enough of a cachet at the trade deadline to flip him? Is it a somebody that just needs again that has a good maybe has a good rotation but needs that veteran presence? I don't know. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with him, if anything. Right? I mean, it could be the Kyle Gibson route where he signs minor league deals for a couple teams, but it doesn't get a whole lot of major league time, and then that's it. I don't know. I think it's. I mean, when Miles Michaelis is on, you could see that he still can pitch at the major league level. The problem is you just don't know that he can do it 30 times a year or even 25 times a year, right? It's those 10 games where he just gets blown up that makes you wonder. Plus the fact that he looks like a guy throwing in your backyard. You kind of wonder how long that's going to last for. He really just never can be consistently getting people out. So far he's doing it, and I just don't know who's going to take a chance that he can do it
Yeah,
next year.
yeah, that's a good question. And that's something I had never really considered. That he's going to be out there and someone's going to sign him, and they're going to look at them like they're going to look at him like we would potentially look at a Kyle Gibson. You'd be like, hey, that's not somebody that's going to come in and hurt you. One of those things, and good for him. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's the Marlins because I think that's where he wants to be. Somewhere around Jupiter, Florida.
Yeah, that's fair. Right. That would not be a big
Yeah.
surprise either. Yeah.
Well, I brought up the Athletics article on potential free agents in the off season, and just looking at arms, I mean, us knowing the Cardinals or what the Cardinals were under Mo, you're thinking, well, a lot of these things just aren't going to happen. and
Right. Yeah.
I'm trying to see where Kelly Bobson. He's 19th on the list. The problem is he's 36, but I mean, I'm a big Kelly fan, and that's a move that I would like to make.
Before we wrap it up, though, you mentioned them recently. I think we got to give a little bit of. I'm just continued to be amazed at what the Brewers.
Oh my goodness,
this year.
yes.
It's interesting now to look at the standings and realize the Cardinals are closer to the Cubs than the Cubs are to the Brewers. That is, I mean, they've won 13 in a row. It's the second time this year they've won more than 10 games in a row. It's like I think they're 26-4 over the last 30. It's insane, right? I mean, for the fact that they were 5, 6, 7 games out behind the Cubs, in June, and here they are basically running away with things. It's amazing. And you're right. You mentioned it. They are what the Cardinals used to be.
Yeah. And this is going to sound completely silly. I found myself pulling for them, even in division. You know what I mean? You're just like, hey, if they have this going on right now, Murphy's easy to like, and it's one of those to where you're like, man, if the Cardinals don't get in, I'd sure like to see them. I would sure like to see them as the National League representative in the series. It's one of those just because there's such a great story and the way that they do it's awesome. And I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a little bit of jealousy as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think they run into problems when you get into the postseason, but I mean, right now they're gonna have a bye, right? I mean, because they're 4 or 5 games up on the next team when it comes to wins and losses. So, unless they kind of slump in September, which the Brewers in the past have been known to do, but I don't know that I would expect this crew to. They're going to have a bye, and I mean, again, we've always said, get the playoffs, you never know what happens, and they might not be the favorites, but they have proven that they can beat anybody. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's getting to where the time where the weather starts to change and the playoffs are on top of us, and it's always one of those. I've always said the hottest team always wins. Boy, I don't know if there's a team hotter than them right now.
No, there's not. The problem is if they say that, they probably aren't going to stay this hot.
That's true. You hit that gap.
Be hard to do. Yeah, they'll hit a bump somewhere. But been pretty impressive for what they've done. All right. Well, that's another week in the books. Alan, I'll be with you next week to talk about whatever happens next week. So until then, for Alan, I'm Dan.
Good night.
Good night.
0-1 to Poole. In the air, left field, and Pools has given St. Louis the lead. A dramatic, towering 3-run home run. Stunned in disbelief here in Houston.
Hi, everyone. Rich Bray here with a look back at the no-hitter that Bob Gibson predicted he would never throw. Before taking the mound against the Pittsburgh Pirates on August 14th, 1971, Bob Gibson still had yet to throw a no-hitter. Not in college, not in the minors, not even in 1968, a season dubbed the Year of the Pitcher, in no small part due to Gibson's dominance. Gibson and third baseman Joe Torre even joked about it half an hour before the start of the game. According to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Gibson told Joe Torre, "I think I'll throw a no-hitter." "Nah," Torre replied, "you throw too many pitches." The wire services reported that when Gibson told Torre I might throw a no-hitter, he reconsidered and then said, "Nah, I don't want to do it. It takes too many pitches." Catcher Ted Simmons, however, was ready to believe. "Just 2 nights ago when we were eating, I said Gibson would pitch a no-hitter Saturday," he said. "Go ask Chris Zachary if I'm not right. He was there too." Zachary confirmed Simmons' tale with a nod. Meanwhile, there was no doubt that Pirates slugger Willie Stargell, who accounted for 3 of Gibson's 10 strikeouts that day, including the final out of the 9th inning, was a believer. "All of those people who said that Gibson was washed up should have had to bat against him tonight," he said. The Cardinals made sure that Gibson had a comfortable cushion before he even threw a pitch, as Torre and Simmons hit back-to-back RBI singles, and right fielder Joe Haig followed with a 3-run homer. Gibson walked Jackie Hernandez to lead off the third inning before retiring the side in order, and he issued a one-out walk to Stargell in the fourth. He then retired the next 10 batters, including Milt May on a deep fly ball that forced center fielder Jose Cruz to make a running, one-handed grab at the warning track. That play didn't worry Gibson as much as a high chopper in the eighth inning off the bat of Dave Cash. Torrey was playing in at third to defend against the bunt, and Torrey had to leap to keep the ball from bouncing into the outfield. That was the only play that really scared me, Gibson said. In the ninth, Gibson got Vic DeValillo to hit a ground ball to Maxfield at shortstop, and Al Oliver to ground out to Kubiak at second base. Gibson threw the ball by me all 4 times at bat, Oliver said. He's the first guy who's ever overpowered me. I just couldn't get the bat around. With 2 outs and Stargell at the plate, Gibson went to the slider for his 124th pitch of the game. Home plate umpire Harry Wendelstadt called it a strike for Gibson's 10th strikeout and the final out of the day. I was looking for a fastball, and then that slider cut over the plate at the last instant, Stargell said. That last pitch to Stargell exploded, Cardinals manager Red Shanding said. It was Gibson's 201st win and the 48th shutout of his career. Though the Pirates had 4 base runners, none advanced past first base. With the win, Gibson improved to 11-10 on the season and lowered his ERA to 3.22. It had been a challenging, injury-prone season for the veteran right-hander, including a 3-week stint on the disabled list in June due to a torn thigh muscle. This thrilled me, it really did, Gibson said. After it was over, I felt like we'd won the 7th game of the World Series. It was an equal thrill for Simmons, who went 4 for 6 with a double and 3 runs scored, improving his batting average for the season to .314. That was the greatest thrill of my life, catching a no-hitter, Simmons said. Man, he was throwing fire. Torrey went 4 for 6 and drove in his 95th RBI of the season, increasing his batting average to .360. You keep looking up at that big scoreboard and see that they don't have any hits, said Gibson, who admitted he was well aware of the no-hit bid through the game. In the last 2 innings, I was bearing down extra hard. I was trying not to make bad pitches. Even when I was getting behind in the count, I was careful not to groove the ball. I was throwing sliders and curves with the count 3-2. After the reporters had asked all their post-game interviews, the 35-year-old Gibson offered high praise for his performance. He said, "This was the greatest game I've ever pitched anywhere." For more Cardinals history, visit stlredbirds.com or follow me on Twitter at Remembirds, REMEMBIRDS.
He got it! Struck him out! Look at the scene on the field. McCarver, the first one. Now his infielders all over him. A new world's record of 17 strikeouts in 1 game.